Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today's Monday, April 27, 2026, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has unveiled a proposed congressional map for the Sunshine State, which his office claims could allow Republicans to flip up to 4 U.S. seats in the House. Oh, he gave it to Fox News before he gave it to the legislators. Nikki Fried, the chair of the Florida Democratic Party, will join us. The Supreme Court will allow Texas's redrawn Republican-friendly congressional map to stand, formally reversing a lower court ruling that deemed it unlawfully racial gerrymander. The Virginia Supreme Court hears arguments today challenging a voter-approved redistricting plan there. The court will decide whether the map meets constitutional requirements. Also, it's More Monday. Protesters joined Bishop William Barber to demonstrate against the spending of billions of dollars, what they consider an illegal and unholy war in the Middle East, where many people continue to suffer. Plus, Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries calling out Republicans for their support of the war while they delay a bipartisan funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security. He also called out the White House when it comes to their language, their constant language of frankly calling out Democrats, claiming that they want to be violent. But most of the violent attacks come from the right. Plus, the man from California has been charged with attempted assassination after allegedly trying to force his way into Saturday's White House Correspondents' Dinner. And I got a few words to say when it comes to Trump's ballroom. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the fine. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin.
A week ago, there were a lot of Republicans in Virginia complaining about voters there picking or choosing new maps. Many of them are going to be real quiet this week in Florida. Today, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis unveiled his new map for U.S. House districts. Go ahead and show us, y'all. Here's the map right here. Barely any blue dots. They want to pick up 4 seats there, okay? But guess what? He is so shameful, he didn't give this map to even Republicans or Democrats. He gave it to Fox News first. That's right. Republicans right now hold 20 of Florida's 28 seats, while Democrats hold just 7. They want to flip 4 of those 7 to the GOP side. Except there's a little problem. There's something called the Florida Constitution. Nikki Fried is the Democratic Party chair for Florida. She joins us right now. Nikki, glad to have you back on the show. So explain to folks watching and listening why that little pesky thing called the Florida Constitution could be a problem.
You know, first of all, Roland, at some point, I'd like to come on the show and not be talking about the crazy crap that's coming out of my state.
Unfortunately, Nikki, I'm from Texas, and I have to deal with crazy crap from my home state constantly because of people like Governor Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
Crazy. So here's the deal. In 2010, the people of this great state voted to make sure that Florida's congressional and legislative maps could not be drawn on partisan lines. That was done, 67% voted for this in 2010. So it is part of the Florida Constitution that says you cannot draw maps based on partisan lines. And that is exactly what the Republican Party and Ron DeSantis has done. And we really kind of started hearing that this issue back last year when DeSantis was gloating about alligator Alcatraz with Donald Trump and started to spew misinformation about the 2020 census and how Florida was deprived of more seats, even though he was governor during the 2020 census and failed to fund the census in Florida. So he's been playing this game for the last few months here in Florida and now has called a special session that starts tomorrow and has added 2 additional things to the call. Not having anything to do with the fact that Florida is the #1 state that's most unaffordable, that renters can't afford to stay here. Our property insurance is through the roof. Renters can't afford it. Our healthcare system is crashing, and the list goes on and on and on. But here we're going to call a special session to illegally, unconstitutionally draw maps based on partisan lines.
Okay, and so now let's be real clear. He did the exact same thing in 2022. Taking away a black district, and then the Florida Supreme Court allowed him to do so. But even with this map, he's got Republicans who are complaining about the map as well, saying they could be stretching it so thin to put Republicans in danger of losing seats.
Yep, absolutely, and that's what we continue to see. Even what was drawn today, and you're right, Roland. Like, he went on Fox News. He went on Fox News with a color-coded map that talked about voter registration differences in the state from 2020 to where it is in 2026. Once again, reaffirming and giving us plenty of evidence to present to the courts, showing exactly what he has done, and it is very much on the partisan lines. And because of doing this, you are not only risking taking away Republican votes from Republicans congressional reelections, but also legislators. We've got a whole lot of House and senators that are sitting in R plus not that many seats. And with an energized Democratic ecosystem, and with the fact that Florida has been overperforming the national average, we have moved left 17 points in every one of our special elections and elections beginning part of 2025. We have flipped 29 seats here in our state since 25. That is everything from the city of Miami mayor to the Boca mayor to flipping Mar-a-Lago House seat to a couple of weeks ago, another Tampa Bay seat. We are building a coalition of Democrats, Republicans, and independents that are rejecting this, all at the same time that they can't afford their groceries and they can't afford to fill up their tanks and they can't afford their utilities. And that's not what's on the call for this week. It's these very radical gerrymandered seats that is going to actually, in this cycle, is going to cost them. I think that, in fact, Florida Democrats are going to pick up a seat, not lose seats this cycle.
And the point that you make there, and this is what I have consistently been saying all across the country, the best way to stop what the right wing is doing is to vote. They can be beaten, but folk have to turn out and they have to lose at the ballot box. The reason they've been able to do this is because they've had these places where they have, where they've gerrymandered in the past, where they've created these supermajorities, because people sit elections out. And then they go, well, I don't understand what happened. Because you didn't vote.
Yeah. Elections have consequences. And unfortunately, for everybody who is listening, Florida is not a lost cause by any stretch of the imagination. You just heard my statistics that since beginning part of 2025, we've launched what we're calling the Pendulum Project, which is year-round organizing in all parts of our state, no matter where the demographic is, red, blue, purple areas, rural areas, city areas, concentrations of college campuses to non-college campus areas. We are going everywhere. So certainly if you're listening to this and you want to be part of it, definitely go onto our website, floridadems.org. But because of this year-round organizing model, we are getting into communities and showing up and listening to what is on people's minds every single day. We contacted over 5 million Floridians last year and another few million this year, because we are taking this organization seriously, that an only way that we're going to be able to turn Florida around is by putting in the work, not waiting 2 months before an election, not putting things on TV, but doing the work on the ground in every community, listening to the voters and building a coalition. And that's what we're doing. We've got incredible candidates that are running for office all the way up and down our ballot that are listening to the voters, and the Republicans have played their hand here in Florida. So don't give up on us, because we have not given up on us. We are putting in the work. We're flipping seats. We're getting incredible candidates to run for office. And that's why I firmly believe that this is a moment, a perfect storm that the Republicans have created for our state, and is going to be the Democratic machine that is going to run through it.
You also, you and I have talked numerous times, and what you have said consistently is that the National Party has to reinvest in Florida. Too often what they've done is they've come in, they've raised millions of dollars in various cities from rich donors there, and then took the money and left and never came back. Democratic House Leader Hakeem Jeffries announced they're going to spend $20 million targeting Republican congressional seats. Since he made that announcement, how has your fundraising been? I take it that was music to your ears, but has it also caused other donors to say, wait a minute, if Jeffries is making this move, then we also need to follow. We saw what happened when he made the big investment in Virginia and that ballot initiative passed.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And I had spoken to individuals in leadership and Speaker, I'm going to call him Speaker because that's what he's going to be soon, Speaker Jeffries' camp to make sure that we are, in fact, talking to each other, that it's the right messaging here in Florida, too, because you're right. A lot of people come in and they spend money in Florida. And that is not going to bring us wins. You have to invest here, investing in the infrastructure, investing in the year-round organizing, investing in candidates and the things that they're building on the ground. And so with that $20 million announcement, it gave us an opportunity to go back to the donors who have been skeptical, saying, oh, Florida, wait until the national groups come back into play. It is too much, too expensive. We spent all this money. And now what it's saying is like, listen, the flag has been raised. Hakeem raised it, says we are playing in Florida. We are competing in Florida. And we're not going to back down in Florida. And this is an opportunity now for me and the rest of the Democratic ecosystem in Florida to go back out to these donors, to go back to these organizations that have left our state realistically since 2020. When we were not able to produce that success and that win for Joe Biden. And so we have a lot of ground to make up, but we are making it up every single day. So for donors that are out there and are listening, we have not backed down. We continue to show up. And you're right, Roland, you and I have talked about when DeSantis first drew these illegal maps in 2022, and he announced, and people need to remember when he put out those illegal maps in 2022, on MLK Day to take out one of the Black congressional districts here in our state. And I made it very clear I knew exactly what he was trying to do. He was trying to get to the Supreme Court of the United States to overturn the Voting Rights Act. And that's exactly the game plan that is continuing to showcase here in Florida. And we're not backing down. We're getting more organized. We are more cohesive and more united here in the Democratic ecosystem in Florida than we have ever been. Everybody understands this moment. Everybody understands that the intensity this moment needs to bring. And so now we are organized. We've got a game plan here in Florida and realistically need a lot of our national donors and those who have thought that Florida was too expensive to not invest here.
Are you also telling, let's be real clear, are you also telling national Democrats, national Democratic strategists, don't bring your ass to the Sunshine State trying to tell us how to run elections? You better listen to the people here to understand what's happening on the ground, because that's something that all across the country I hear, where what happens is on the House side, DCCC, on the Senate side, the DSCC, they come in with all their know-it-alls and they want to spend all the money on television, not realizing that you got to put money on the ground game as well. Are you making that perfectly clear to folks to say, hey, you listen to those of us who are from this state, from these cities, from these communities, from these neighborhoods, from these blocks, from these streets to know how to win here?
Are you on my phone, Roland? Do you have a bug on my phone? Because it's legitimately, for 8 years, these are the conversations that I've been having, even with the White House, when President Biden, would be doing, some policy initiatives about Central and Latin America that doesn't necessarily jive with what's happening here in the state of Florida. And so it has been a consistent drumbeat, and including last week, making sure the messaging, and if they're going to be targeting a part of our state, we are different than other parts of the country. You cannot take polling from Texas on Hispanic voters in Texas and think that is going to translate to voters here in the state of Florida. You can't take messaging from New York and think that you're going to bring it down here to the state of Florida. So that is something that I do on a very consistent basis to all the national operatives and saying, listen, we are boots on the ground here in Florida. We are talking to our voters every single day. If you put money in our state and put it onto TV and the message is wrong, you not only have wasted donor dollars here, but you've also taken us back. And so that's an argument that I even made last week, making sure that it's going on to radio and it's going to minority-owned different publications. Make sure you're putting it on the ground, you're putting it into digital spaces. These are the types of advice that we're giving, and I continuously have those conversations as well with our statewide candidates who have national support and are bringing in resources and consultants from across the country. Florida is a different beast and would waste everybody's time and money and just energy if you come in here and you set us back by having the wrong message. So yes, I am consistently having those conversations with national operatives and people that are controlling some of those dollars that are coming into the state.
All right, Nikki Fried, Chair of the Democratic Party in Florida. We still appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, bring my panel, Dr. Omi Kongo Dibinga Sr., professor of lectures, School of International Service, American University, author of Lies About Black People, How to Combat Racism, out of joining us from D.C., Thelma Anderson, creator, The Public Opinion Court, and author of Shut Up and Prosecute out of Dallas, Dr. Zachary Kirk, educator and content creator out of Atlanta. Glad to have all three of y'all here. Thank you so very much. Thelma, I want to start with you. The point that Nikki made there, you cannot bring forward what happens in Texas. I think it's going to work in Florida. You can't say, well, this is in California. This is going to work here as well. You really have to be local, and what's happening in that state. And when I look at Florida, Nikki nails it. Democrats have given up on that state. They wouldn't invest. Also, the state party was in complete disarray before she took over. I mean, you just had clueless leadership there as well. And this is a huge state. It is in terms of you look at the presidential election. Florida used to be a competitive state. It was a state that Democrats competed in, and often was so goes Florida, so goes the nation. And when you look at the map, California has the most delegates. They're the largest congressional delegation, 54. When you look at Texas, that's 40 electoral college votes, 40 congressional seats. You look at Florida, you're talking about that number there, 30. That's huge. And so if you're Democrats, you have to compete in Florida if you want any shot at winning the White House. But in this battle right here, it's also important to make the investment to win statewide office, to win congressional seats, to win state Senate, state House, mayoral elections. You got to be organizing the whole state. You can't just give it up.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And to see Nikki, and that they have a leader, they have someone that they can pump into that is going to lead them to better results. Now, we are in a time now where it's more of an option for them to go back into and refuel, because we know that when you give up on something, you got to come in and you got to recalibrate and you got to refuel. And I think it's the perfect time to go back into Florida, and knowing that DeSantis is attempting to do something that his neighbors have done, and he knows that it won't work, but because he has done it before, he's like, oh, let me stick it out there again and see if it sticks. But thankfully, they do have an amendment that actually is going to put them on pause. But do we really believe in the Supreme Court for them to actually do what the law states? And outside of that, because the Democratic Party continues to say, oh, we're going to push out of Florida, we cannot push out of Florida. Florida is a state that can be up for grabs, but do we know if it's up for grabs if we are continuing to take money out of a state that can be beneficial for the Democratic Party?
The thing here, when you talk about these seats, Omi Kongo, it has been extremely precise how Republicans have utilized computers and algorithms to really narrowly draw these lines, to know how to shift 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000 voters to give them an edge. But the reality is turnout is always the issue here. And you've got some Republicans in Texas who are worried that the redrawing of maps there could also put some of them in jeopardy. And so what Nikki Fried is saying is correct. If you invest in the ground, you can beat them at their own game by turning out more of your people. And so it's not, so if Florida does do this, it doesn't mean that, oh my goodness, it's all over. Democrats could still do well if they turn their people out and vote in massive numbers.
It always comes down to numbers across the entire country, and you always talk about that, Roland. You talk about, particularly as it relates to black voters, if we just vote our numbers in so many places, we could have flipped some red states blue or at least turned them purple. And, the fact of the matter is that we still don't seem to understand that. When it comes to Florida, there are some good candidates there, but they've seen wins already in Miami and other spaces. You got people like David Jolly, who people look at as a strong gubernatorial candidate. they can. This has always been the case. And so if people are really serious about Florida, now from the national level, if they're really serious about Florida, they're going to put some resources in, because just from your guest alone, there are people on the ground doing real work. And it seems like for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 elections, we've always said that this election is the most important election of our time, right? And it seems like this is the most important election of our time right now. And if people are not really getting the message now, after all of the shenanigans that Ron DeSantis is pulling, this guy is doing everything he can to get some type of job in Washington, D.C. with the Trump administration, and they're not having it. I mean, I believe he fired Susie Wiles from his administration in Florida. She's not having it. So for him to go to Fox, right, as opposed to actually coming to the people of Florida. And I'm with Thelma on this. Like, I don't trust the courts in Florida, right? But the numbers, the overwhelming numbers. But I'm also frustrated at the fact, Roland, that Democrats always have to overperform in order to be able to have substantive wins, whereas the Republicans continue to make it harder to vote and easier to cheat so they can squeak by in the smallest way possible. And then people say, oh, yeah, this is the consequences of elections. But hey, this is where we are, and we have to continue to keep that eye on Florida and support Florida with our dollars. And the Democrats, the National Democratic Party leadership, they need to get on board and let the Floridians lead, as opposed to coming in with some cookie-cutter approach to how this is going to get done.
Zachary, it really is. Listen, there's a Republican Supreme Court there in Florida. But again, no one knows. I mean, today in Virginia, the lawyers for the Democrats and Republicans went there, and the Democratic lawyer got pounded by Supreme Court members when it came to the ballot initiative there. Now, it doesn't mean you know how they're going to vote, but the bottom line is you don't know. But this is one of those things that if you're Democrats, you have to assume that the Republican supermajority in the legislature will rubber stamp what DeSantis wants to do, and then their whole goal is, hey, we got the courts on our side. It's going to go to the Florida Supreme Court. We think they're going to rule in our favor, and so that's what you have to deal with here. And so if you're Democrats, you fight as much as you can, but your real goal is to spend the time between now and November. Well, as always, enlighten, educate, inform, to turn your people out and overwhelm the ballot boxes come November.
It's the only chance that we have to maintain and win. That's it. Like, the people of Florida, look, you know what you got to do. And not just, and that's, again, exactly what Roland said, but not only the people of Florida, listen, talking to your viewers, all of us in the United States. In Virginia, Democrats did the right thing. In California, Democrats did the right thing. They put it on the ballot and they let the people vote. That if you're going to redistrict, if that's what you feel that you have to do as a political leader in a state, then put it on the ballot. Let the people decide, not your gerrymander state legislators like what you have in the state of Texas, like what you have happening in the state of Florida, like what you may have happening in South Carolina. This needs to go through the people. Like what you had happen in North Carolina. It needs to go to the people. And so they're the ones who have the right to make the decision as to what's going to happen, who's going to represent them. And we can fight this in Florida, and we can win this in Florida, but the people have to come out. Personally, I firmly believe that today Ron DeSantis fucked up. Okay, that's what I believe. I believe that's exactly what he did, because you took districts that were plus 10 Donald Trump and you turned them into +5. You took away a huge advantage, and he is, the whole entire Republican Party, they are underestimating this man's vulnerability on the party. They are underestimating his level of unpopularity and how the people in this country, black, white, and otherwise, everybody, they're unhappy because they are broke. They cannot put gas in their cars. They cannot feed their families, and they're losing jobs left and right. And that is going to show up in November across this country, and it's going to hurt Republicans in ways they have no idea. We can win this, but it's going to take all of us working together to do it. Overwhelm the ballots and throw some money at the state. Throw some money at the state, people.
All right, folks. We talk about Virginia, where the Supreme Court heard arguments today about whether the state's new congressional map, approved by voters last week, should be allowed to take effect. The latest in this nationwide battle between Democrats and Republicans. Here's some of what happened in today's hearing.
There's the discussion of the publication requirement and whether there should be a publication requirement. And Mr. Slaughter states in no uncertain terms that the whole reason for removing the publication requirement from before the next general election issue is that the idea is that the people get to get educated before they vote to ratify it. And so therefore, that is when people need to be educated, is when they actually vote. And so if we're talking purposivism here, if we're talking about the purpose of protecting the people's vote and protecting the people's ability to weigh in, then I feel like it would be patently unfair to override the people's vote because of a concern that they had not gotten to the opportunity to voice their opinion months earlier.
Regarding the special session surviving the convening of a general session, do you have any authority other than constitutional silence?
No, Your Honor, there's no authority one way or the other on it. It really just comes down to the fact that, and there is one thing I do want to correct on the record about that, though. There's a lot of discussion of 611 or 612 days of continuous session. But to be clear, the legislature did business a grand total of 14 days. They were not. But
contends they were in session the entire time. They didn't have to pass a new resolution by a supermajority or have the governor call them back in at their option. And weren't they actually pro forma continuing the session the entire time?
Yeah, they recessed the session several times. But the bottom line is, Your Honor, they were actually in session for 14 days. So the
session lasted the entire 2 years. Whether they did business during the session is a different question.
Well, perhaps, Your Honor, but the bottom line is there's no reason to start talking about how this legislature created some non-citizen or professional legislature. They were in for 14 days. They didn't violate any concept of a citizen legislature by remaining in recessed session for a long period of time. They only actually did business for 14 days. And so given that, and given the fact that there is no authority one way or the other, but the bottom line is that they weren't converting themselves to a citizen legislature. I really don't think that there's any constitutional argument that they somehow violated their powers as a legislature to continue the session. Unless there are any further questions.
I have one, but I didn't want to eat into your time on the 3 issues that are before us. My understanding is there's additional lawsuits that are working their way through the courts. Can you give us a just very quick update on essentially where those are, if you're able to?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
Okay,
there are 2 other lawsuits working their way through. Currently, one has been filed. The Commonwealth has filed a notice of appeal in the Court of Appeals. This court then certified it to itself. We currently have a motion to expedite that's pending and awaiting a ruling on that. There is also a litigation on the compactness of the maps. The Circuit Court of Richmond ruled yesterday that the maps are both compact enough, and the constitutional amendment abrogated the compactness requirement for this anyway. And we have not seen any response to that just yet, but that was yesterday.
Was that a final order on the merits or a final order on a request for an injunction?
That was an order on a request for an injunction, Your Honor.
So, to the best of your knowledge, there's no final order in that one?
That is correct, Your Honor.
A lot of balls in the air.
There's a lot going on, yeah.
It's helpful to have the latest on that, so thank you.
They've been keeping me busy.
We figured you'd be the one who would know.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Counsel.
Good morning, Madam Chief Justice, and may it please the Court. Thomas McCarthy for the appellees. The Virginia Constitution and Code delineate a very specific and detailed process for amending the Constitution, a process that proceeds in 2 stages with an important role to be played by the voters of the Commonwealth in each. The Court held nearly half a century ago that Virginia voters are entitled to strict compliance with that constitutional amendment process. Yet a bare partisan majority of the General Assembly rammed the proposed amendment through the legislature, departing radically from the mandated constitutional amendment process and historical practice, severely undermining the rights of Virginia voters, and indeed undermining confidence in the results of the very referendum itself.
When you say a bare partisan majority rammed it through, that sounds like an argument about something that they shouldn't do. but we're only concerned with what they couldn't do. It doesn't matter that it passed by one vote, and if it only passed by one vote in the General Assembly, if they have the power to do it, or if they followed the right procedure. They clearly have the power to do it. The question is, did they follow the right procedures? So I would ask that you focus your argument on that.
Now, Democrats in Virginia pushed this new congressional map in response to what Republicans are doing elsewhere. Again, the Supreme Court will decide. It's 7 members of the Supreme Court, and so we'll certainly see what happens. This is going to impact what goes down in November. Now, the Supreme Court today ruled that Texas can proceed with a congressional map that favors Republicans. In a 6-3 decision, the court formally reversed a lower court's ruling that deemed the map an unlawful racial gerrymander. The high court's ruling allows Texas to use the congressional map passed by the state legislature last summer in the upcoming November elections. This map could secure Republicans up to 5 additional seats in the House, and it would remain in effect until at least the 2026 election. The dissenting justices in the summary reversal were Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, why is this Supreme Court decision in Texas important? Because the lower court called it a racial gerrymander. The Supreme Court will be issuing its opinion in the Louisiana versus Calais decision. Why is that important? Because they could very well rule, and based upon the questioning that we saw within oral arguments, they probably going to rule that race cannot be used in the creation of these districts. Now, this is important because that's why DeSantis is doing what he's doing in Florida. He believes that that's exactly what is going to happen, that the Supreme Court is going to rule in favor of Republicans in this because they're fighting the creation of a 2nd district in Louisiana. Now, here's what's crazy. Supreme Court previously ruled that the district was supposed to be created. But then the same Republicans came back and then tried to say, well, we shouldn't be using race at all. That's what they're going to be deciding. Now, why is that important? Because in Mississippi, the governor has said, we're going to call a special session because we think the Calais decision is going to come down because they've had to redraw Supreme Court seats and state seats due to the issue of race. Back to my panel. Congo. And this is the thing that people have to understand. All of these things are commingled. And so what is happening? These Republicans in Mississippi, in Florida, in Alabama, in Texas, in South Carolina, in Arkansas, in Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, all of these southern states, they're sitting here going, oh, man, let's see what in the hell goes down. And so we're now talking about if the Supreme Court rules for the Republicans in the Louisiana versus Calais decision, then what you're going to see are Republicans literally try to wipe out as many as 20 Black and Latino congressional seats all throughout the South using this particular decision. So that's why this Texas Supreme Court ruling is important, saying, hey, forget the lower court ruling saying it was a racial gerrymander, because remember, the Supreme Court ruled that they had no role in political gerrymandering. And that's what unleashed all of this mid-decade redistricting. Now what they're going to likely say is there's racial gerrymander. Hey, we got no role in that. And so that could lead to a wipeout of seats. So people need to understand why voting is important. And you're going to see with this Supreme Court decision, and we believe it's going to go against people of color, it is going to cause a massive shift in Black political power, and it's going to wipe out a lot of Black political power.
I mean, and you add to that what's gonna happen in that decision relating to the Voting Rights Act as well, and they are, as a word has said, with surgical precision, targeting all aspects as it relates to Black empowerment through the political process and voting. As I said earlier, they want to make it easier to cheat and harder to vote. If we don't come out in these overwhelming numbers, it's I don't want to say lights out, because we've been in worse situations and we fought for these rights, but all of the struggles that we've put through to get to this point, you know, with the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, it's all being wiped away, and they're doing it slowly. And I just don't understand for the life of me how slow Democrats Democratic leadership has been as it relates to responding to this. They're so reactionary, and it seems like day by day, Republicans have cookie cutter legislation already in store that they're using, that they're passing around to their colleagues in different states. They already know which judges and which courts they're going to target. They already know what they're going to push to the Supreme Court. And we have some fighters out there like Mark Elias and others, but it seems like the Democrats are just always behind as it relates to this, even when they're in power in certain places. And so it always comes down to the people. And it's unfortunate that we don't have leadership that's as strong, that listens to people like you as they should, because Roland, again, you've been one of the people at the forefront of talking about this. And I mean, some Democrats do get it, but not enough. And since the Democrats don't get it, all we really have right now is the people. All we have is independent media sources like this, lawyers who are out there really doing their work, grassroots organizers who are out there in organizations that you talk about supporting all the time. And for everybody out there, this is why Roland's always saying, send the money to the local organizations doing the work, or the grassroots organizations doing the work, as opposed to the national Democratic leadership, because it seems like at many levels they don't really know what they're doing. But this is an all hands on deck approach, and you really laid it out of how it's happening across the country, particularly in the southern states, and it's only going to get worse if we don't act right now.
See, Zachary, what I need black people to understand, I'm not having primarily, I'm not making a Democratic argument. I'm making a black argument. I'm making a Latino argument. Now, what I'm also doing, though, is looking at the reality of where is black power. Okay? The 4 Republicans in the House, they're going to be gone come January. Okay? Wesley Hunt ran for U.S. Senate, couldn't seek his seat. Byron Donalds is running for governor. If he wins or loses, he can't run for his seat. Burgess Owens was afraid to run after they created a new Democratic seat in Utah, so he chose not to run. John James is running for governor of Michigan, so therefore giving up his seat. So facts are facts. If you're African American, our black political power is on the Democratic side. So what I'm trying to get our people to understand is that what they're doing, and I have been saying this consistently, and for all y'all black people, it's amazing that people got lots to say about Megan and Klay Thompson, which ain't got nothing to do with political power. It's amazing. Folk got a whole lot to say about everything else, but what we're talking about here is going to have a direct impact on billions of dollars flowing out of our community if Republicans are able to wipe out black political power, Zachary.
Nothing but love to the stallion. Nothing but love to the stallion, Megan.
I don't give a damn who they dating, who they not dating. I don't care. I'm real clear on this show. I don't care who you're dating, who you're marrying, who you're sleeping with. If you have a baby, if you're getting divorced, that people spend way too much damn time on folk personal business. My issue here is this is about literally the survival of our communities. And folk who spend more time on bullshit and not real stuff, gonna wake up come January and go, oh my God, what the hell happened? Like folk did on election night, November 2024.
You're 100% right. And Roland, this is what, like you started off saying, this is what I need black people to understand. Let me tell you what I need black people to understand, to reiterate what you said, is that people like Governor Tate Reeves of Mississippi, my native land, my home state, they are doing the work of their ancestors. They are doing the work of their ancestors. These Republican governors in the South who are fighting here, ready to redistrict, pens in hand, people, pens in hand, ready to carve us out, ready to dilute and end black voting power in this country. They're doing the work of their ancestors. And I need all of us to do the work of our ancestors. Our ancestors fought diligently with all they had to ensure that we will be in a place in the future where we could vote, where our votes matter. We stand on their backs. They lost everything, including many of them their lives, to cast a damn vote. And here we are in 2026, uninvolved, uninterested, unwilling to get up off of our black asses and do the exact same thing. We have to show up in record numbers. The reality is, we can still win these seats. We can still maintain control and have Black voting power in this country if we take action. 90 million Americans did not vote in the 2024 election that were registered to do so. We can continue forward. We continue to make progress, but we've got to stay involved and we've got to vote no matter what anyone out there says to hold us back and to curtail us and disenfranchise us and push us to the margins. We can't go there. We are losing too much. Donald Trump asked in 2016, what do you have to lose? We're living in 2026 10 years later and we're losing every goddamn thing, everything. That's why Black unemployment is at 7.9%. We have to continue to show up, we have to continue to fight, and we have got to continue to do the work of the ancestors.
See, the thing for me, Thelma, you know, I had some folks hit me and they were like, you know, Roland, 300,000 Black women lost their jobs in 2025. And I said, I know. And almost 500,000 Black men and Black women losing jobs. Black male and Black female unemployment has gone up under Donald Trump and MAGA. And what I am looking at, and again, all these folk who love talking, who love to say, well, we ain't got nothing, our community, they ain't changed anything. I'm telling all y'all right now, y'all can sit here and run y'all mouths all y'all want to. Y'all can sit here and talk about how Democrats this and Democrats that and Democrats, go right ahead. Y'all can sit here and talk about, oh, the Congressional Black Caucus ain't nothing. My state Black Caucus ain't nothing. Y'all are about to find out real soon what happens when 5, 8, 10, 15 Black members of the legislature gone. You about to find out what happens when they're gone. Black folks in Texas already know what it's going to look like when you go from 4 Black members of the House to 2 because of what they did there. And if people want to play that game, okay, but we're going to sit right here and say it, hashtag, we tried to tell you.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. And when we talk about how behind the Democrats are, we got to talk about at least 10 years behind of what the Republicans have been putting into place. And when you think of how did they get their plan in place, I think back to these meetings that they were having at the Epstein Ranch and at the Epstein Island, and they're formulating these plans while they're doing the most despicable things to children. That is because they knew that their time was going to come where they needed the power in order for them not to be held accountable. So they put these things in place. And when you have leaders that brought it to the front in the Democratic Party and they set their ass down and didn't do anything, then we got to look at the African-American community. How many individuals would rather get on social media and use clickbait to talk about things that have no value in what is being taken away from us at this very moment, which is the power of our vote. Our votes that our ancestors shed their blood for, had to stand in line, had to vote with jelly beans, had to do the unthinkable in order for us to have the ability to vote. And we take it so lightly, as if, oh, we're just going to wake up the next day and we're going to have our ability to vote. No, that's not what they're doing. Their plan was put into place. Why you think they have the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court gives them the ability to take our votes away. When Gary Chambers brought it to the light in Louisiana years ago, they sat on their ass because they didn't want to hear from him. And that's the problem I have with the African-American community, is they have selective processing with who they want to take information from. Information that benefits us in the long run, I don't give a damn who is telling it. Say it. Because if you don't, and we never get it, we're going to continue to be behind, even with the Democratic Party. And that's the issue that I have, is these leaders sitting on their asses thinking that they are a prize when you will lose that prize that you think you are to what they want is to take our votes away.
Again, I just, y'all, we walk y'all through this all the time. We walk y'all through this. We walk everybody through what were going to be the implications of Donald Trump winning in 2016. We told you. Everything we told you happened. We told y'all what the implications were going to be if they win in 2024. We told y'all about Project 2025. We sounded the alarm. We told y'all about the courts. We told y'all about what they wanted to slash. And all these folk, and you got some Negroes out here. Oh, Trump ate too. I saw some fool talk about, oh yeah, you know, I told y'all Trump did some good things, and there was a black woman who got sick back in the day, and he went and paid her medical bills. So you think that negates him being a racist? That was Trump trying to get some media attention. See, we tried to tell y'all. And see, what I need people to understand is that what the Republicans are doing right now, listen to me clearly. I need all y'all to listen to me clearly what I'm trying to tell y'all. What the Republicans are doing, they're saying, if we dismantle the districts, we dismantle the policies, we dismantle the infrastructure, even if they win the White House in 2028, it's going to take 20, 30 years to reconfigure it. Let me say that again. I need everybody listening to what I'm saying. Republicans are looking at the 3 Reconstruction Amendments, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendments that were passed by the radical Republicans who opposed slavery during that period that led to Reconstruction, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. What then happened? You had the Great Compromise, you had the election of 1876. You had the Great Compromise of 1877. You then, of course, had the Supreme Court making various rulings. And then you had, of course, the Plessy versus Ferguson ruling in 1896. That Great Compromise of 1877, listen to me clearly, the Great Compromise of 1877 led to the wiping out of black political power all across the South. 1890, the Republicans, in Mississippi, the white folks there said, oh, hell no. No, hell no. We can't have this. So they had a state constitutional convention in 1890 where they took the right to vote away from black people because the white folks said there's too many of these black people who are winning office. Because after the end of slavery, from 1865 through 1876, y'all, 1865 to 1876, black political power, they wielded that power quickly and decisively. They passed laws all across the South. There were more black state legislators in South Carolina than white. And they said, no, we can't have this. So what happened? A contested election in 1876 leads to the Great Compromise of 1877, effectively ending Reconstruction. You had the storming, the coup of Wilmington, North Carolina, and they begin to wipe out. And that's when Congressman White gives his speech, his famous Phoenix speech from the floor, because he was the last remaining black member of Congress. He gives that speech. Did y'all do the math? The Great Compromise of 1877, Plessy versus Ferguson was 1896. That's 19 years. With these people, and then 1896, you don't see another civil rights bill. Last civil rights bill, I think, was 1875. You don't see another civil rights bill in America until the watered down one in 1957. And then you get to the 60s. And so what today's Republican Party, not the radical Republicans in the 1800s, today's Republican Party is aligned with the Southern Democrats of the 1800s. Today's Republican Party is sitting here going, how can we dismantle as many of the laws and the rules that were put in place during the Civil Rights Movement and after the Civil Rights Movement? Contracts, education, housing, health, dismantling the billions in grants. Because when you take the grant money away, you're now destroying the organizations. Y'all to hear what I said. You take the grant money away, they're destroying the organizations. The organizations are within the communities. And so now, when you choke off the money, you no longer are seeing the results. What did Doge do? Doge choked the money off for AIDS programs in African countries. A year later, what are we now seeing? The rise of AIDS in those African countries. And so what I need, black folks, and we love commenting on bullshit on social media. What I need y'all to understand is that what we are seeing right now is the targeting of anything black and everything black. They laid it out, and they're saying if we completely disrupt and dismantled the federal laws that guaranteed voting rights, the federal laws that determine congressional seats and state seats, if we dismantle these things, then we are wiping out the complete black infrastructure. And that's why I framed this in January of last year as this is the defunding of black America. And it's happening before our very eyes. And so you can be consumed with all this other stuff. You can be sitting here, you don't like me, you can't stand what I say. Oh, you met me and I was rude, which is nonsense because I speak to everybody when I go anywhere. Y'all can say, you can say whatever you want to. You can sit here, y'all can trash me on Threads, Twitter, Instagram, all over the place, but I'm not lying. And I'm telling you right now, black people, if this continues, and if we do not vote, and I'm gonna take a break, and I'm gonna show y'all what happens when we don't vote. The last election was the largest gap in white-black turnout in 30 years. I need y'all to understand. We scared the shit out of them in 2008. In 2008, black people, by percentage, voted at a higher rate than white people did for the first time in American history. And that was with the election of then Senator Barack Obama. That was 2008. 2010, many of us who showed up in 2008 didn't show up in 2010. And then you had the Shelby County versus Holder case that was decided by the Supreme Court and that gutted Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. And that's when they began to fight the Voting Rights Act, shut down polling locations, change voting rules, put in voter ID, because they saw with their own eyes the power of black voters. And they said, no, we can't handle this. And what has been our response since? We have had fewer of us voting in each election since 2008. I've always said, when you show what you are capable of doing, you got to keep showing them. And you got to keep turning out. They are absolutely scared of the future of black people and Latinos and Asian Americans being in charge. My book is called White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. This is the book, y'all, and I laid it out. And I'm telling you right now, what I am laying out to you is exactly what is going on. And I'm telling you, if we continue to play games and to be talking about every other thing and ain't got nothing to do about our future, we gonna look up and we gonna see, and we already seeing it, we gonna see scholarship programs wiped out. We gonna see black health programs wiped out. We gonna see education opportunities wiped out. We're gonna see black political offices wiped out. We're already seeing last year, Biden-Harris, $10 billion in federal contracts going to black-owned businesses. Well, only 2%. That sucker's already down to 1.2% under Trump. So if you lose economics, education, health, civil rights, social justice, they've wiped out your black infrastructure. And that is their aim. So, folk, I'm telling you right now, you can mark it down at 7:02 p.m. Eastern on April 27th. If we sit these elections out and let them win, and when it happens, y'all mark this moment. You cannot say you weren't warned. You cannot say the flag was not flown. You cannot say the siren was not sounded. Because it is. We're going to keep hitting it every day, whether the haters like it or not. I'll be right back.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
Folks, today in D.C. was Moral Mondays, and repairs of the breach organized several protests in D.C. right down the street from us, really a block away. They protested what they call the illegal and immoral war in the Middle East. The Trump administration is spending billions of dollars on warfare while people are suffering. Bishop William Barber made it known that they are standing against the policy of violence, abandoned communities, and the normalization of destruction.
Today, we are here for the third Moral Monday. Stop the war and save lives. Say that, stop the war, and save lives.
Save lives.
And we are in 16 states and in Canada today. Clergy, moral activists, impacted people are gathering. But we made a decision that today we needed to engage in deepening the call. And so today I'm going to take some time and study why we have nonviolence and a commitment to nonviolence. We're asking 1,000 clergy beginning today and impacted people to go online, and in a moment you will hear it as another special declaration and prayer to make the commitment and to send it to every member of Congress, because we must make sure, as one of the principles of nonviolent direct action, that people know exactly why we're doing what we're doing. For it may not change them immediately, but surely it changes us and keeps us focused on why we must study war no more. We also are announcing today that on May the 11th, we're calling for peace and nonviolent rallies in our 16 states and here in D.C. And we'll be seeking authorization. What's it called when you get from the city? Permits to be in the street right here in front of the White House, and call on people to join us on May the 11th here and around the states. Lastly, today we are also announcing that we're calling on young people who now are automatically selected to serve, that in our Moral Mondays we will be teaching the basics of conscientious objection and giving young folk a place they can come and announce their public statement against war, and how and what the process is for engaging in conscientious objection. Why these three things? Why this deepening? Give me a moment as we talk to people around the country and around the nation and those of us who are here. At Saturday night's White House Correspondents' Dinner, journalists planned a party with White House officials. The very White House officials who consistently berate them for doing their job. That in itself was a curious reason for gathering. But before Trump could give what he claimed would have been the most inappropriate speech ever made, it's what he said. The event was interrupted by Cole Thomas Allen, a 31-year-old man from California who fired at Secret Service agents while attempting to storm a security checkpoint. Allen was taken into custody with no officers or guests, and no officers or guests were injured. At a press conference back at the White House, Trump claimed he felt everyone coming together before the shots were fired, and called for unity in response to the gunman's action. But President Trump has spent a decade or more exploiting every possible fault line to divide Americans. He has incited violence against members of the media at rallies, and he kicked off the celebration of the United States 250th anniversary in Des Moines, Iowa last July 4th by declaring hatred for Democrats and others who would not support his dramatic cuts to nutrition assistance and health care, which are also forms of violence. We know very little about Allen or his motive for this attack, but this much seems clear. Allen believes what the president and many others in our society believe, and that is that peace will come when their enemies are obliterated. And they must use violence to win the world that they want. This idea is what Jesus called bad leaven, a spirit of division and violence that cannot be easily turned off once it has been unleashed to serve some political goal. Once this bad leaven is unleashed, once this spirit, impure spirit is unleashed, it's hard to turn it off.
You heard Bishop Barber there talking about the man who's now been charged with attempting to storm the White House Correspondents Association dinner. He has been charged with, again, attempted murder on Donald Trump. Cole Thomas Allen, an educator and engineer, was formally charged during his first court appearance. He faces additional charges for using a firearm during a violent crime and for transporting a firearm across state lines with the intent to commit a felony. An FBI affidavit reveals details about Allen's planning. Authorities allege that on April 6th, he reserved a room at the Washington Hilton where the event would take place. He traveled by train from California last week and checked into the Washington Hilton a day before the dinner with his room reserved through the weekend. The event had barely begun when the 31-year-old resident of Torrance, California, armed with a shotgun and a pistol, attempted to bypass a security barricade a floor above the ballroom. This prompted an exchange of gunfire with Secret Service agents. One agent was hit. He has since been released from the hospital. It led to the cancellation of the dinner. Allen's next court appearance is April 30th. Now, what then happens is Donald Trump goes to the White House, holds a news conference, praising security, and then he uses his opportunity to tout why his ballroom should be built. Okay. But y'all, and then, of course, what we've now seen is this unleashing of attacks on Democrats saying that, oh, the leftists are what's wrong with this country and they're the violence that's taking place. Well, the first guy who tried to shoot Trump was a Republican. The second dude who had a gun at Mar-a-Lago was a Republican. This dude was a registered independent. So you got all that going on. So we're going to talk about that. But here's what is quite interesting. So Trump uses this moment to tout his ballroom, and the right wing follows. And you got Senator John Fetterman, others like, oh, yeah, we need to build a ballroom. So let me help y'all out who don't know anything about this. The White House Correspondents' Dinner is put on by the White House Correspondents Association. That's not a White House organization. That's a group of journalists. The dinner, the occupant of the White House is an invited guest. It's not his dinner. So this notion that you can just move it to this ballroom is a lie. Okay, here's the other thing, y'all. Trump's ballroom, it's supposedly only going to be able to hold 650 people. You know there were more than 2,000 people at the dinner on Saturday night? So the ballroom is going to be too small. So now Lindsey Graham is coming out by saying, oh, he's going to introduce a bill for the taxpayers to spend $400 million on Trump's ballroom. Now, the reason I'm making this point is because the right wing is lying. They're lying. Y'all, I've been to numerous events where the president or the vice president's there. And all these people are, oh, no, we got to have a safe place. We have to have a safe place for the president to be able to have events. Well, that's interesting because there are events all around the country where the occupant of the Oval Office goes, where J.D. Vance goes, and they don't shut the whole building down. Y'all, they just don't. Let me reiterate. This guy did not storm the doors of the ballroom where the dinner was being held. This ballroom is 2 floors underground. I've been to the dinner. I've been to that hotel. I've been to that hotel for other events. Okay? People stay at that hotel who don't go to the dinner. You come through the front door, you got to go down 2 levels to get to that ballroom. The shooting took place a level above the ballroom. So can we be honest with people about what actually happened? to the other point. Republicans are saying, oh, it's these leftists. They're so violent. I'm sorry. Who organized January 6th? Who stormed the Capitol? Who wanted to kill Vice President Mike Pence? Who attacked police officers? What the hell y'all talking about? Who tried to kidnap the governor of Michigan? Who shot and killed the former leader in Minnesota and her husband? And then shot another legislator and his wife? Do y'all see how silly? See, I ain't playing this both sides all back. And then to have Donald Trump, Democrats tone down your rhetoric. No! The reason I would have never gone to that dinner, because this man despises the media. He has attacked journalists. He has attacked black journalists. He has attacked black female journalists. That's who he is. There's no person in this country who has done more to speak in nasty, vile, despicable terms about the media and about the American people, and especially Democrats, than Donald Trump. Nobody. That's who he is. And so when I hear these people talk about, you got to turn the heat down. I don't, all this both sides, no. They do not demand anything of this man. He is allowed to do whatever he wants. Sleepy Joe, and he's fallen asleep in meetings. He is corrupt. He is raping and pillaging this country. He and his sons are getting billions of dollars in contracts, in crypto money. We can go on and on and on. This is a criminal enterprise running out of the White House. This is a man who has no bottom, who is absolutely despicable, who trashes anyone, who calls people's names. He is vile. He is a thug. And we're supposed to listen to him and his chief liar, Carolyn Levitt, and the rest of these people? To any House Republican or Senate Republican or state legislator, y'all laugh at the pathetic things that comes out of this man's mouth, and y'all think it's cute? And now y'all want to call Jimmy Kimmel saying, oh, he should get fired because he made a joke. For all y'all who voted for this on y'all. This on y'all. This is y'all's guy. And I'm telling you right now, if Biden or Obama or Clinton had acted even 1% in the same way this thug has acted, the howling and screaming from the right wing would be unbearable. They lost their minds over a tan suit. But they're silent. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Martha McCallum, Will Cain, and all of Fox News, and Salem Radio, and Scott Jennings, and Newsmax, and OAN, all of y'all, they're silent as this man demeans and degrades everyone. Because that's just Donald being Donald. He has no right to tell anyone to tone anything down when that's what he should be doing. Go to my panel. Zachary, your thoughts.
Everything that you said is 100% true, Roland. I love it 100%. Like, laid it out. This has been I was literally sitting here taking notes and writing down and digesting all that you shared. And like, one thing that I want to bring up that you said earlier about, when you broke down the voting rights, you broke down the book, right? Like, I have one copy of the book. I'm about to buy me another copy because support is a verb. And I'm going to take all that information and it's going to be digested and put on my platforms as activists because you laid it out perfectly, as you always do. This is a critical time and I appreciate it.
Omekongo, I am very clear on this. I've covered Republicans, I've covered Democrats, I've covered independents. What these people have allowed to happen with this man 2 blocks from this office is beyond despicable. They have no leg to stand on. And whenever they try to criticize somebody else, I'm like, I don't want to hear it when you smile and cheer on the filth that emanates from this man's mouth, and then they dare try to say he's a Christian.
Yeah, it's despicable and it's disgusting. And this whataboutism, this both sidesism, that's one of the things that it's just angers me the most when I watch some of these guys. I was watching Dana Bash, not watching her, in the car. Dana Bash on CNN and Jamie Raskin. Do the Democrats need to tone it down a little bit? And Jamie Raskin was like, well, what is it exactly that we said? It's like the people who are being asked to do this, these Democrats, they need to put these journalists or so-called journalists and talk and hosts, they need to put them on the spot, like run it down, saying because and Dana Bash is like, well, you all say that he's terrible for the country. Well, first of all, that's a fact, but why can't you say that and not be accused of fomenting violence? And then you say nothing about Trump, who is fundamentally a violent man. Whether you're talking about the rape charges, whether you're talking about all of his rhetoric about, beat these guys down, I'll pay your bills. Back in the day, we used to carry these guys out on a stretcher, like from the very top. And you notice whenever Democrats suffer any type of political violence, whether we're talking about the representatives in Minnesota that you mentioned, or Nancy Pelosi's husband, they never come out and talk about toning anything down. And they never really get asked about toning it down. And on top of that, they joke about it. Oh, look at that. We need to have a wall at the border, just like Nancy Pelosi has a wall around her house. Oh, but I guess it didn't really work as much, huh? That's what Trump said. Oh, how's her husband doing? I heard she's not doing her. And he makes these jokes while the Republicans laugh. And so the media folks don't want to, the mainstream media folks don't want to call them out on their hypocrisy. The Democrats don't want to accurately challenge these hosts when the whataboutism is brought up. So all that's left is us. All that's left is those out here in these independent media spaces and our platforms to call out the hypocrisy, because the violence comes from the top. And furthermore, it not only comes from the top, the Republicans, they elevate violent people. They elevate racists. They elevate homophobes and misogynists and anti-Semites and Islamophobes. At least the Democrats, when something like this happens on the Democratic side, the Democratic leadership will at least call people out, maybe call people to resign, vote. I'm not saying they should do this, some voted, I think, to censure Rashida Tlaib or whatever. Maybe I was wrong about that. But at least they take some form of action to hold their folks accountable. Republicans, it's like getting to the top. It's a feature to be racist. It's a feature to be violent. It's not a bug. And so that's another reason why this whataboutism is absolutely fake. But let's be mindful of it, Roland. Last thing I'll say, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, CBS, who's now officially in the hands of the Ellisons and Trump, they had 15 tables at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So this media is already wrapping itself around catering to Trump just by who's owning these outlets alone. So we're only going to see more of the whataboutism from the networks that they own, or the people possibly like Dana Bash who are auditioning to stay on once they take over CNN.
Again, I mean, we're going to call it like it is. Again, what these people are saying and doing, it's abundantly clear. I just need people to understand what's going on. And this man hates He hates the media. He hates any media that doesn't kiss his ass. And he relishes being able. He relishes being able to slam reporters that alter, and he specifically is consistently is attacking black journalists, black female journalists, Thelma. And what drives me crazy, you're there in Dallas to sit here and have to listen to Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who tries to act like he is just this super holy, super Christian, and they will stand with this evil man at every turn.
Listen, we gotta call it like it is, just like you said. This is not just a Republican problem. This is a world problem because the world allowed this to happen for him to get into office. And when I'm thinking about this White House Correspondents' Dinner, when has this ever happened before? And we're talking about, oh, we need to protect the president. Well, maybe he needs to stop showing up so other people can stop being put into danger. Because when you look at the landscape of it all, it gives setup how relaxed they were. You can't tell me that the FBI and the CIA, with all of their technology and capabilities, did not intercept that man's manifesto and knew what his plan, his plot was, and knew when he arrived. Which goes into the effect of, okay, well, why was security so relaxed? Why was Kash Patel so relaxed? Why was Trump sitting up there like he said, I wanted to stay and see what was going on? Why was J.D. Vance so relaxed? Why was Hestage was so relaxed? Why was they all sitting up there like it was a goddamn party? Because look at the economy. He getting his ass kicked in the war. The Epstein files won't go away. The questions won't go away. Manipulating the stock market in order to say, oh, we got a deal today in this war. We don't got a deal tomorrow. We close to a deal. Hold on, the deal almost manipulating the stock market to enrich themselves while they are causing Americans to suffer. And the Americans that they want to suffer more looks like me. Because they know that with African Americans, we have power. And our power is something that always scares them. So when we're looking at the whole landscape of how dangerous this man is, this man has been dangerous his entire life because he's had access. He's had resources. He's never been told no, even by the women who have held him accountable. He knows that he has been held liable for assaulting a woman, but he gets on TV and wants to say, oh, I've never been charged. I've never been accused. Can you stop lying? Please. But we are in a moment of time now where we have everything that we need to see. African Americans cannot be the only one that holds this man accountable. We have Latinas, we have Asians, we have every other race that sit on the goddamn sideline and have allowed this man to perpetuate danger and tear down the value of this country. Everybody have a job to do, and that is to use their voice, use their platform, use their resources to make sure that what we have been set back on, that we don't continue to fall behind because we have allowed a nuisance, a dangerous nuisance, to take over our country.
Just so we're clear, this is from the Rupert Murdoch-owned Wall Street Journal. They put together a graphic that says political orientation of perpetrator in domestic attacks and plots targeting the U.S. government for attacks where orientation was unknown. The blue is what they call the left. The red is what they call the right. 1995 to 2000. 2005 to 2010. 2015 to 2020, and then 2025. The source, the Center for Strategic and International Studies. This graphic clearly shows that since 1995, more of the political attacks have come from right wing. So Donald Trump is lying, Carolyn Levitt is lying, Fox News is lying, they all are lying. L-Y-I-N-G. They are lying. All right, folks, gotta go to a break. We come back. Black Star Network headlines. We're gonna talk about this NFL player who could have his charges dropped if he goes to counseling, ramming the car of his former girlfriend. I gotta talk about that. Don't forget, y'all, huge show tomorrow. Tell everybody what's going on tomorrow. Massive show. Iyanla Van Zant will be in studio here at the Black Star Network. Black women, black men, and domestic violence. 2-hour conversation, and we're taking your phone calls tomorrow. Folk, she is locked. She is ready to drop some knowledge. Trust me, it's a conversation you do not want to miss. Don't forget to support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year. Folks, the work that we do. And listen, on this issue of domestic violence, we've had segments every single day since the heinous murder-suicide of Dr. Serena Fairfax by her husband, former Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Justin Fairfax. We've been covering the story. We've been breaking it from all different angles and not shying away from having the difficult conversations. I don't know anybody else in Black-owned media who's been doing what we're doing, and we're going to continue that. And so we want, so your support is critical. If you want to support us via Cash App, this is the Stripe QR code. Click the Cash App pay button to contribute. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Back in a moment.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
What's up? It's Talib Kweli. I'm CEO. This is the Black Star Network.
Folks, time for Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
Iran has proposed to lift its restrictions on the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for the United States ending its blockade on the country and concluding the war. According to this proposal, discussions regarding Iran's nuclear program would take place later. But President Donald Trump seems unlikely to accept this offer. Currently, a fragile ceasefire maintains a standoff between the U.S. and Iran over the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow entrance to the Persian Gulf, and a crucial passage for about 1/5 of all traded oil and natural gas. Iran has limited movement through the strait, while the United States has imposed a blockade on Iranian ports. During a visit to Moscow, Iran's top diplomat stated that American leaders are interested in negotiating because they've achieved none of their goals in the war. And in Louisiana, a controversial bill that could potentially force individuals experiencing homelessness into unpaid labor is advancing through the legislative process. House Bill 211 aims to make it illegal to camp on public property, specifically targeting those with nowhere else to go. If the bill is signed into law, individuals caught camping for the first time could face a $500 fine or up to 6 months in jail. For repeat offenses, penalties could increase up to 2 years in jail, with or without requirement of unpaid labor. The bill also authorizes courts to require unpaid work from those who cannot afford treatment programs. While supporters argue that the bill enhances public safety, critics contend that it criminalizes poverty. The bill has successfully passed the House and is now headed to the Senate. A man has pleaded guilty to the 2002 killing of rap pioneer Jam Master Jay, born Jason Mizell of Run DMC, in the New York federal court. 52-year-old Jay Bryant admitted that he assaulted others in entering a building to ambush the DJ in his Queens recording studio. Bryant's admission provides closure but adds complexity to an already complicated case. He did not identify the individuals he helped, but the jury in 2024 convicted 2 other men, Jay's godson, Carl Jordan Jr., and his longtime friend, Ronald Washington. Eventually, a judge cleared Jordan of the charges, citing insufficient evidence to hold him responsible for the crime. Washington has also contested that his conviction, and Bryant is expected to spend up to 20 years in prison. A sentencing date has not yet been set. Virginia Commonwealth University is committing $3.6 million to build a memorial honoring dozens of individuals, most of whom were of African descent, whose bodies were stolen from graves for medical dissection and other discarded in a well. It happened during the 1800s, and the remains discovered in 1994, those included men and women and children. Many of them showed signs of surgical experimentation. Through the East Marshall Street Well Project, the university now plans to create a burial site and memorial space. University leaders say the goal is to honor the lives of those who were once denied their humanity. And Nebraska's first state-approved Black-founded school, Identity Preparatory Academy, is set to open this fall as an all-girls middle school that focuses on culturally responsive learning and academic excellence. It was founded by Dernisha Phillips. The school has been shaped directly by the voices of young girls and families through a program called Dreams of Our Daughters, where students played a role in designing everything from curriculum to extracurricular activities. At its core, the academy is built around what its leaders call a culturally fortified education, ensuring that students see themselves reflected in their classrooms, in the leadership, and overall learning environment. And the movie Michael performed exceptionally well at the box office, grossing a record-breaking $97 million in North America during its opening weekend and $217 million globally. Now, this made it's the biggest debut ever for a music biopic. Despite receiving mixed reviews and facing production challenges, Michael was released on April 24th and features Jafar Jackson, the late singer's nephew, in the lead role alongside Nia Long as Catherine and Coleman Domingo as Joe Jackson. The film offers a highly authorized portrayal of the king of pop who passed away back in 2009 at the age of 50. It was co-produced by the Jackson Estate and Lionsgate. The movie overcame controversy and costly reshoots to generate strong audience enthusiasm, leading to discussions of potential sequels.
All right, folks, be sure to catch the breakdown of Brittany Noble every day at noon Eastern right here in the Black Star Network. Again, the breakdown with Brittany Noble every day at noon Eastern right here on the Black Star Network. So for more than a week, we've talked about domestic violence. We've laid out numerous stories where Black women have been killed by husbands, partners, boyfriends, or in the case of children. Other cases we've talked about where women have been violently beaten. What happens, though, before violence takes place, when an individual is showing predatory behavior? Well, that's the case of the Atlanta Falcons defender James Pierce. Now, remember the story where he was arrested for ramming the car of his ex-girlfriend, Rekia Jackson. And even as she was heading to a police station. Well, NBC News, this reported late last week, he is going to avoid, go to my iPad, he's going to avoid jail time over the domestic violence charges. Now, here's the deal. According to this story here, this is a quote from one of his attorneys. Mr. Pierce Jr. will be entering a 6-month diversion program. Upon completion of the 6 months without violation, the state will dismiss all felony and misdemeanor charges. Now, this deal was brokered and supported by not just by the officers on the scene, the DA's office, in addition to Rekia Jackson. Now, you might remember, The story here says, according to the police account, Jackson told authorities she attempted to drive away from Pierce and was driving toward the Doral police station to seek help when Pierce, quote, intentionally collided into the rear of her vehicle with his SUV before police arrived. Pierce allegedly refused an initial order from police to get on the floor. According to the details of the arrest in an affidavit, the police account said Pierce then drove away and hit a police officer's left knee with his vehicle intentionally in an attempt to evade arrest. Now, the judge accepted this plea deal, and they said that he did not have a history of violence. But clearly, these are the type of actions that take place before somebody commits domestic violence. Thelma, I want to start with you because, you know, when I talked about mental health and domestic violence, a lot of people were pushing back, criticizing me by saying I was wrong. We brought on experts who said, no, mental health is a part of this. And so you prosecuted domestic violence cases. Last week, we had a judge on from Dallas County, as well as former state's attorney Marilyn Mosby from Baltimore. And he's getting a 6-month diversion program. That diversion program includes counseling, includes therapy. Again, that's tied to mental health. And this was the point that I was making, that when we're talking about, as one of our guests said, murder, suicide, or murder is at the end of the spectrum. You have murder, then you have beatings. And so my position has always been, we've got to get to these men before they commit any act of violence. And so if we're able to deal with them on the front end, to get that counseling, to get that intervention, to get all of those different things, then we can potentially avert a woman being physically harmed or being murdered.
Absolutely. And my experience as a former prosecutor, especially not only as a misdemeanor family violence prosecutor, but as a felony prosecutor that handled dead body felony family violence cases. When I'm looking at this particular situation here, this is a textbook setup for someone that has the capabilities to unaliving someone in their capacity. I don't know what kind of conversations the judge, the prosecutor, and the police all had behind the scenes in order to come up with such a ridiculous disposition when this individual utilized his vehicle, which is a dangerous weapon, to ram it into his then girlfriend's vehicle who was attempting to get help. That is not an individual you give a slap on the wrist just because of their proximity to stardom. And that's what it looks like. You have an individual who is a NFL star. If you put them against an individual that's a regular 9-to-5, the 9-to-5 is going to get treated totally different because he doesn't have the access, the proximity, and the ability to influence with money. This is giving me influence. I've seen it, I've lived it, and it has pissed me off because we have real victims that could be in lay of what this individual is not getting. 6 months? That is not enough time for an individual that has done this. But when you look at it from the entire landscape, yes, the goal is to get them help if they get in this position. But if we can get to them beforehand, because this person has signs, they don't just wake up one day and go and ram a deadly weapon into another person's car. This person had signs before and nobody showed up to tell this individual, you need help. But now we get to see it from the landscape of the criminal justice system. And this is where the criminal justice system sometimes falls short. You, as a victim, as soon as you call the police, you no longer have the ability to dismiss. They had everything that they needed to proceed outside of giving a dismissal, but for proximity, his NFL career, fuck all of that. We gotta work on saving lives and saving these individuals from continuing to do this, because y'all have now set this individual up to say, oh, I got money, I got a powerful lawyer. They can go talk to the judge. The judge can go and talk to the DA. The DA can go and talk to the police, and we can all get this dismissed.
Right.
That is a dangerous rhetoric.
So this is the ESPN story. This decision allows him to avoid trial on felony charges of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, fleeing police, and resisting arrest, along with misdemeanor stalking. That's a whole lot going there, Omekongo. And per this deal, he must stay away from his ex-girlfriend, Rekia Jackson, participate in therapy as part of the stipulation of the 6-month intervention program, which is run by an outside third party. And the story says Florida law allowed for the police officers and the victim, Jackson in this case, to be consulted before the deal is finalized. Assistant State Attorney Andres Perez, the prosecutor, conferred with Jackson and law enforcement officers, and all parties consented that pretrial intervention was the best way forward, per State Attorney spokesperson Ed Griffith. Perez considered that Pierce was a first-time offender without history of violence. No one was hurt, and, quote, it appears that this incident was born out of a mental health crisis. It says Pierce's attorney showed Perez steps immediately taken by Pierce after the arrest to address the mental health concerns. Griffith said Pierce will have to continue this treatment plan and submit to random drug testing, while also complying with the NFL's drug testing protocol. Any failed or missed test will result in Pierce's revocation from the pretrial intervention program, and Pierce must write a letter of apology to law enforcement officers, Griffith said. I think, Omekongo, I absolutely agree with Thelma. 6 months is not long enough. I don't believe, if you say you have a mental health crisis, or whatever you want to frame this, and this is the thing that I have been saying, because we have to step in to keep someone from going to the next step. But when you choose to chase down your girlfriend or ex-girlfriend and ram their car at a police station, and then, as I said, then you try to escape, we have to recognize 6 months is not long enough. And the reality is, by him having to adhere to this, it keeps him from facing felony charges. That's the thing hanging over his head. But the point we also have to recognize is that this is also what is used by courts to get folk to seek therapy. And this is what we have been talking about. In order for us to we don't want to do another story of a black woman or any woman being killed by a husband or a partner or an ex-girlfriend. We don't want them being beaten, but we have to have a society that is able to get to these men early so they can have their issues addressed when it comes to ego, control, power, misogyny, whatever you want to call it, because the point is to save lives.
First of all, kudos to and much respect to Miss Jackson for leaving that relationship, and I'm hoping she's getting all of the support that she needs. I believe she plays in the WNBA, and I hope they're giving all the support. WNBA has been, a really progressive organization. The reason I bring up the WNBA, because my question, Roland, is where the hell is the NFL? Like, where's their response? The NFL penalizes players more for abusing drugs than abusing their partners and spouses. And that's absolutely ridiculous because of the player's talent. And so it's disgusting that we see this response, that number one, with this program that he's entering, and then the lack of response from the NFL as well. It's like Oprah said when she was talking about the Chris Brown Rihanna situation. She said, I'm going to talk to you in the screen right now, Rihanna. If he hits you, he will kill you. And so the fact that she's doing that and leaving that, and that he would chase her to the police station, that shows a certain level of, like you said, a domineering and control that's on some next level stuff. So there needs to be more attention on this. And furthermore, I've been so fortunate to be part of this show, but I haven't been prouder to be part of this show than I have been over these last few weeks since what happened in Virginia with the Fairfaxes and what you've been covering and talking about every night. And one of the things that's been pissing me off so much is the backlash we're seeing online from people telling me, you're spending too much time talking about black women. This is a black issue. You're supposed to talk about, all of us together as one, and they don't deserve this type of attention. I'm getting this from brothers, and I'm like, first of all, you ain't my brother if you're talking like this, but we need to be talking about this at every level, to have the experts like Thelma who have lived this and seen this. That, I saw the post that you shared from your sister, Roland, over the weekend as well, talking about her situation. We have to have all hands on deck. And for y'all who are out there who are fans of this guy online, follow him in social media, use your platform to call him out. Use your platform to call the NFL out to do more. Because sometimes these guys, when they get really threatened with losing their money, they start to get a little bit more serious. But sometimes that's not even enough, because some people are so drunk with power and privilege. So you have an Ayanla on tomorrow. We're doing what we're doing here. And we need to keep doing what we're doing. And we need to keep uplifting sisters like Jackson, who are making the bold steps to leave and protect herself and follow those orders. And we need to shame organizations like the NFL for not doing enough.
The thing here, Zachary, again, somebody in the chat says, why are you not talking about her and you're talking about him? I am talking about her because as a part of this decision, she had to sign off on it. That's Florida law. She had to sign off on it. And according to the state's attorney, she did. But the thing that we have to confront, and I'm going to keep saying this, whether people disagree or not, I need people to listen to me very clearly. There are 22,000 domestic violence calls per day in America. Let me say that again. According to domestic violence hotlines, they get upwards of 22,000 calls a day. 96% of domestic violence cases are committed by men, when men are the aggressor. So if I do not want to do another story of a woman who's been killed, or I don't want to do another story of a kid or children who've been killed, or stories that actually we don't do of women who have been harmed, physically beaten. I've seen some of them, some postings on Instagram. Then we've got to get to the perpetrator of the crimes. And that means whatever's happening between the ears of these men, how they've been raised, how they've been dealt with, what trauma they've seen, PTSD, anger, hatred of women, misogyny, patriarchy. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But if we are going to see a change, we got to change what's happening here with these guys. And what the courts here did, and this is where the legal system has leverage. If he does not complete these steps, they could try him on the felony charges. What I argue, and I had somebody in the chat about saying, how 6 months is not long enough if they go twice a month. I'm sorry. I listen. As somebody who's had to help my sister leave a violent marriage, I don't believe 6 months is long enough, and I believe the legal system has to have that hammer over somebody's head to say, if you don't follow through, yeah, we're gonna try you. And so we have to deal with this. And I need black men and black women to not run from this conversation, to not say you're spending too much time or you shouldn't be doing this, because it's actually happening. It's happening every day. And if we can prevent one case or 10 or 100 or 1,000, that's good, because we need people. And Zachary, last point here, it's very interesting. It's a lot of folk had a lot of stuff to say, but it's amazing how many posts we made last week. No comments. 1 comment, 2 comments. And I'm saying, where you at?
Roland,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Hats off to you. Hats off to you for how you handled everything in the loss of a friend, of friends. I was watching the whole process and everything. I don't miss an episode, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the show. I'm proud of this direction that you're taking to destigmatize therapy and counseling among Black men. And proud of you, but damn shame on the NFL. And you talk, this is an Atlanta Falcons player. I'm in Georgia. I've been in Atlanta for a long time. And it's really fucked up that the NFL would do more about beating dogs and Michael Vick than they would do about the lives of Black women that are being lost.
That's true.
So damn the NFL.
That's
shame
true.
on the NFL for that and for what they're doing. And when you talk about the violence against Black women and how this is a crisis and what's happening, Black women are 6 times more likely to be murdered than their white counterparts. Black women make up just 14% of our population, but account for over 30% of all women who are killed by men. 90% of Black women knew their killer, and you also have the fact that our Black women are nearly three times as likely to be killed by an intimate partner, femicide. So thank you for raising this issue and for putting it out there. We have got to break the generational curse of abuse in our community, because that's what it is. And 6 months, to me, I'm sorry, I agree with everybody on this panel. Everybody out there I just don't know if it's going to be enough time. I'm thankful that the justice system is giving this 22-year-old Black man with immense talent an opportunity to reform, an opportunity to rehabilitate, and an opportunity to see the danger of his action. But I'll say this, Rakia wouldn't have that chance if she would have lost her life when that Lamborghini hit her and tried to drive her off the road. She wouldn't have had the chance to reform. She wouldn't have had the chance to rehabilitate. She wouldn't have had the chance to have another day of life. So I want to see this addressed and watched carefully. Because we have to take this on as a community. This is a Black issue, and we have to address it as a Black family, a Black community. Thank you.
Thelma, and again, I need, so Thelma, this is the thing that I need folk to understand. I had somebody say, you only did this because you knew Justin Fairfax. No, I'm going to go back 17 years. I was at CNN in 2009 when Chris Brown attacked Rihanna. And I remember watching the network and the other networks, and there were largely women who were guests discussing this. And I kept saying, are we going to confront what these men are doing? And I happened to fill in for Campbell Brown one night. And I said, I want an all-male panel. What? That makes no sense. I said, y'all, if men are committing these acts, we need to confront what the hell is going on with men in this society. And they fought me. The person who was producing the segment is now the president of MS Now, Rebecca Cutler. She's the producer on the segment. And I mean, I remember having a fight to get the conversation. So I need people to understand, this ain't new to me. That was 17 years ago. But I also need people to understand, and again, I didn't put it, my sister posted. I helped my sister leave a marriage where she posted on Facebook, she said, I likely would have been killed. That was 24 years ago. So I'm not sitting here talking theoretically about domestic violence. I'm also talking as somebody, as a brother, who had to deal with her and her 2 children and helping them rebuild their lives in therapy over a course of 20 years. And even to this day, you're still dealing with the remnants of that. So what happened in Virginia is not why. I looked at the Florida case. I looked at the Zanzibar case, the Cook County case, that case. And then, of course, Shreveport 3 days later. And then another case in Richmond. And then a female pastor in another place. And I'm sitting there going, if we don't start talking about it now, you know what we're going to end up doing, Thelma? Just doing another story and another murder and another murder and another murder. At some point, we've got to be willing to have a conversation. And also, I need our people to understand We got to stop sitting here saying black men get therapy, but then we bring on black therapists. Then folks get mad. We're bringing on black therapists. Well, I'm like, well, who the hell do you think they're gonna go to? So I mean, so this is a real complex issue. It is not a simple issue that we have to be willing to hit all angles in order to confront. And before I go to you, tonight, while we were live, Black Women's Roundtable, they had a town hall called Beyond the Headlines, the Crisis Facing Black Women. I think they live streamed this. And so if they did, we're going to get that stream and we're going to restream it. And so Melanie Campbell sent me this, and I appreciate them sending me this. And so we're going to try to get that. Now, as I said, y'all can pull up the graphic. Iyanla is going to be here tomorrow. Go ahead and pull that up. We're going to have her for 2 hours tomorrow, taking phone calls, talking about this issue, and she's ready to do so. Now, for all y'all, again, it's a lot of people, Thelma, who are talking and who are posting and who are expressing anger and resentment, and they're weighing in. But we're not just sitting here just doing that. Dr. Kevin Washington, who was on the show Thursday before last. Well, he happened to be in Shreveport the week before that shooting took place. The day of that shooting, he said, I'm going back. On Thursday and Friday, he's putting together 2 days of conversations. It's called Black Men's Health Forum at Southern University at Shreveport, taking place from 5 to 7 at the Alphonse Jackson Building Auditorium. Inspired by his book, Get Up, Stand Up, Ubuntu, and Elevating the War Spirit in Black Men. You see that it says IPV, community gun violence, health and wellness, psycho-emotional integrity. We will be live streaming that as well. That's taking place on Thursday. Also taking place on Thursday, Reverend Joshua Dubois is putting together what he called his We Are Values, the Dad Games, calling all dads, National Dads Check-In Zoom call. That's taking place on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You see right there, register at bit.ly/dadgamescall. They're doing this as a way for black men, dads, to check in with one another and check on how they're doing. And so, Thelma, we can't keep saying black men be accountable, black men check other black men, and then we don't do it. That absolutely has to happen. And so this, for me, this ain't black men versus black women versus black men arguing back and forth. Our goal is simple. We can't say Black Lives Matter if we're only talking about the police. Black Lives Matter even when black women are losing their lives at the hands of black men. So I don't want to see another sister murdered. I don't want to see a sister beaten. I don't want to see a sister verbally abused. This has to be all hands on deck for our community, no matter what institution, what organization, what income level.
Listen, the one thing that I want people to understand about the message that we have been receiving on your network is nobody else is having these kind of conversations. Conversations that you tried to have years ago, but you was too early for individuals who wasn't ready to have that conversation, ready for us to be educated on how to protect each other instead of tearing and abusing each other. When I saw the outrage, the one thing that I had to tell people on my platform, when you are looking at the dynamic from just one post or just from a snippet of a person's life, you do not get to dictate how somebody shows up and supports someone that has done something wrong, because at the end of the day, they still had a life that they lived and had impact on individuals prior to their wrongdoing. I saw it every day. No matter how bad the crime was, people still had people that show up and support them. And guess what? You don't get to dictate it. Just like individuals want to dictate how we have conversations about something that is so volatile to our community, instead of us having argumentative conversations, what are your solutions? That's the only thing that I've been asking individuals who have a problem with the conversation that we are having, especially surrounding DV in the African American community. How are we going to have conversations if you cannot bring a solution other than getting online and rage baiting? That takes away from what we are trying to do in order not only to influence individuals who can see it and say, hey, that may be me that they're talking about. But if you want to drown it out with your rage instead of taking that rage and going to get yourself some help so that you can redirect that so we can provide powerful solutions, not only for now, but for generations to come, because that's who's looking at us. They're looking at us at this moment to see how we are responding when we are talking about losing lives. Not only losing lives, but we have kids that have to suffer now. We have kids that have to grow up without parents. When we can have these conversations, set up resources, solutions, support each other, and have those conversations, because at the end of the day, you got to think, was this person comfortable enough to be vulnerable? How do we talk about making sure individuals are in a safe space to tell us what's going on up here so that we can go and help them here? That is going to then trickle down to their nervous system in order for it to engage up here. It's a whole cycle, and we can't do that with the negative rhetoric that is going on, especially from my Black sisters. We cannot have that if we are saving lives.
Folks, again, Thursday, we will be live in Shreveport, Louisiana. That is where that brother shot and killed 8 children, shot 2 Black women, both survived, but they are going to be facing physical issues, mental issues, psychological issues for a very long time as a result of that. And in fact, when I was talking to Gary Chambers told me that Louisiana is number 2 in the country in domestic homicides. Number 2 in the country. So our aim is, Dr. Kevin Washington, he put this together. He hit me up. I said, hey, we can come down and broadcast this because we've got to use mass media to reach as many people as possible. Upwards of 3,000 people are watching us right now. I would hope more than 3,000 people are going to show up on Thursday and Friday, but probably not. So if somebody's being helped, this is what it's all about. One of the things we're also going to do is I'm going to get with Dr. Monique Swift Muhammad with the Association of Black Psychologists. And you have your National Medical Association. And we're going to get with them and get the links if you're looking for Black experts, if you're looking for Black psychologists, Black psychiatrists, Black domestic violence therapists, licensed counselors, you don't know where to look. We want to be able to create that or have the links, put it on blackstarnetwork.com, you can find it. Because I'm going to keep saying this, and I don't care if people don't like it. I had somebody, when I posted the Shreveport story, what the man's mother said when he said he had demons, he was fighting his demons, and he had spent a week at the VA hospital. Had a person, this person was a longtime journalist who I met in 1989, said, "You still pushing this narrative?" And I'm like, "You're mad because I'm repeating what his own mother said, and what the New York Times reported about what was going on." We cannot just say thoughts and prayers.
Mm-mm.
Let me say this again. Black America, we can't just say, "Man, this is sad. Oh, I can't believe this happened. Oh, I'm so angry this happened." I get rage. I get anger. I get being upset. I get pain. But how my brain works is, how do we not experience it again? And if there's somebody who right now is on that edge, who's watching or listening? I've had brothers and sisters hit me say, man, I've sent these segments out to friends who are going through divorces. I've sent it to people who are going through custody battles. We don't know what a person is dealing with. Because let's just be honest. It's a lot of men and women who don't talk to family and friends. And so we don't really know what people are dealing with and enduring. What I want, and this will be the final comment for you, Ome Congo, what I would need our people to do is to stop attacking, stop fighting, and I get emotion. I get expressing emotion. But we also need to be providing people help, resources. Read this, watch this, go here, call so-and-so. Here's this summit, here's this conference. Because you really don't know. People walk around with masks all day. You really do not know what's behind that mask and what's going in their head. And if we can keep people to learn how to control their emotions, control their rage. I mean, I saw these videos of people posted videos of shooting at a gas station in Atlanta, and this sister busted a window out, and she was like, I don't care, and the brother was holding her back, and the woman gets out of the car, fires shots at her, she dead. And I'm watching this, and I'm going, if the sister with the gun, and the sister busted the window, and the brother there, how do we teach people to de-escalate? How do we teach people not to go to that level? That's what we're talking about here. And that also requires training and knowledge, and it requires time. And we got to be helping people through this, and we got to stop assuming people automatically get it, because clearly they don't.
And it also requires acknowledging what we are as a country. We are fundamentally a violent country, and there are more guns than people in this country. In the last 5 minutes, Roland, you shared 4 different sources, at least 4 that I counted, that are happening in the next 3 days. The 3,000 plus people who are watching, people are going to watch this later, rather than DMing us and bickering and going at each other, why don't you just pick one resource, one mental health resource, one domestic violence resource, one shelter resource, and just share it with your community every single day. You don't like what Roland's saying? Find some other, maybe you like Ayanla better or whatever. Take her stuff. Share it, put it out there, take Thelma's stuff. So, just do one thing minimum every single day in your particular way to put a dent in ending the violence that we are suffering. If you don't like our methods, just do something productive. Stop hopping into DMs. Just do something that's going to help somebody. Roland's talking about people are sharing the videos and stuff. People are like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. What can you say today that somebody's going to see you say or see you post, and they're going to say, yo, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that. Now I know the signs. Now I'm going to get some help. Now I'm going to help somebody else get help. That's all we are asking for in this moment. This is not the time for division. This is time for people to do what they can of what they have, where they are, before it comes to your door. And unfortunately, for too many of us, it has already come to our door. But if we're still breathing, that means we're still believing, and we still got work to do. So just everybody get out there and do something to make the smallest dent or even the biggest dent possible in this real crisis.
Folks, tomorrow, a 2-hour special with Iyanla Vanzant right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, live at 6 p.m. Eastern. Black Iyanla Speaks, Black Women, Black Men, Domestic Violence. We also will be taking your phone calls as well, so we'll have that number for you tomorrow. And Thursday, we will be live in Shreveport, Louisiana, with Dr. Kevin Washington, a licensed African-centered psychologist. He is having a 2-day event, Black Men's Mental Health Forum. Is taking place on Thursday. They have stuff happening on Friday as well. We will broadcast from Southern University at Shreveport on Thursday of this event as well. And again, that city has been rocked by the shooting death of 8 children, by the father. He fathered 7 of those kids, and the name is not with me, so that's why I'm not naming. So I don't have the name with me. But then, of course, 2 sisters shot as well. They've survived but still a horrific tragedy. That city is hurting. And Dr. Kevin Washington said he wanted to return to offer some help to try to prevent it from happening again and again. Louisiana is number 2 in the country in domestic homicides. That's real. And so we're going to use this platform to do the work, spread the information, spread the knowledge. And that's what's important. And again, if we can save one sister, if we can keep one young brother, one young sister from having to experience a tragedy, then it's all worth it. But we don't want to just one. We don't want to see 22,000 daily. This is not just all black. That's just 22,000 total domestic violence calls. I want to see that go to 15,000, then 10,000, then 5,000, then 2,000, and 1,000 down to 0. But we're never going to confront domestic violence if we do not confront the individuals that are causing domestic violence. And that's men and their issues and what's happening in their heads. And why are they choosing violence as an answer? Beating and killing a partner, your mama, your sister, your aunt, your cousin, your niece, that is not an answer. Killing and beating them, killing children, that is not an answer. So if we want to stop domestic violence, we're going to have to deal with these men who are committing the heinous acts. And yes, brothers, there are cases where women commit domestic violence, but 96% of all cases of domestic violence are men. And we better focus on that as well. We can still center the sisters, we can get them help, we can tell them how we provide resources. But we need to deal with these people who are causing the problem and the pain and the agony. Otherwise, it's just going to be another day, another week, another month, another year of the same stories and the same anger and outrage and the same thoughts and prayers, and nothing changes. Our goal is for it to change in our community. Congo, thanks a lot. Thelma, I appreciate it as well. Zachary had to go. I appreciate him as well. Folks, thank you all for watching. Don't forget, support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Again, this is why we created this platform. What did the Freedom Journal, the first black paper, say? We wish to plead our own cause too long have others spoken for us. This is about us driving a conversation about us. We center us here. We center black people here. And that's why we've had so many black experts sharing their knowledge and expertise with us. And so support the work that we do. Your dollars make it possible. I tell you, y'all, this stuff is not cheap. Staff, resources, I mean, hell, it costs us $2,500 a month with our fiber. That ain't regular home Wi-Fi. I mean, so this is just real. And so that's why we built this, because we want to be able to help our people in every way possible. Support us via Cash App. Use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. Click the Cash App button to contribute. Also, that's for credit cards as well. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003-7-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo RM Unfiltered. Zelle. Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to please, you want to get our swag, be sure to go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Our hats, t-shirts, black-owned media, don't blame me, voted for the black woman, everything right there, shopblackstarnetwork.com. All the products that you see right here in our studio, go to our marketplace at shopblackstarnetwork.com. All of these products, black-owned companies, we created. I don't know, y'all let me know. I don't know of any other black digital show, black podcast that has created a marketplace for black-owned companies for you to buy and support. If you go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, you are supporting black-owned businesses. Again, another reason why we created this show. Don't forget, watch the breakdown of Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern, right here on the Black Star Network. Check that out. Again, tomorrow, Iyanla Speaks. She is live in the Black Star Network studios. Black women, black men, and domestic violence. We're going to be taking your phone calls as well. It's going to be a powerful 2-hour discussion. Tell everyone, man, let's break some numbers. Let's pass the word. We need all of our folks watching and learning and listening, because the only way we deal with our issues is we confront them head on. Last but not least, folks, over the weekend, I was in Dallas-Fort Worth, and of course, I was gone for a week. My wife and I celebrated our 25th anniversary, and come on, go to the video. And I didn't tell my dad I was coming, and he told my mama, he was like, I ain't heard from Roland all day. Pull audio up. Come on, audio. Well, I ain't hearing it. I told y'all, let's go. Look at my dad. So my dad, he was sitting here. He was shocked. He was shocked. I don't know, did somebody cuss? No, somebody didn't cuss. He was shocked. So I surprised him. I shot this with my Meta glasses.
What's happening?
So they had this Motown event out there, and so I drive by. That's my great niece. That's her granddaughter. My sister right there. And so we went to want to surprise him there. He, of course, was shocked as all get out. That I didn't tell him I was coming, so I'm always surprising him. So this is my dad. Turned 79 on Saturday, April 25th. And so we had a great time hanging out with the family, went to church yesterday. And so, as always, y'all, we should always celebrate and love on our parents when we have them, and enjoy our family as well. And so happy 79th birthday to my dad. Happy 25th wedding anniversary to my wife, Jackie. And so, again, y'all, so it's all good. We're back at it this week, back on the road, and we're going to keep out here, man, doing the work that we have to do. And I'll make it clear, y'all, if we don't do it, who will? If we don't do it, who will? And what we're not going to do here, we're not going to wait to see what other people do. We're not. We're going to do it, and we're going to keep doing it, and we're going to keep covering us, and we're going to keep centering us, and we're going to keep telling our story as long as we're humanly possible to do so. Because that's why we created this show, created this network, because we're not trying to ask someone else permission to tell our story and to cover our story. I will see y'all tomorrow, right here with Iyanga on the Black Star Network.